Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope you're doing well, and today I have a book recommendation and a review, and it's a book by a poet, and I am extremely lucky to have discovered this poet and to have read his profound works. So the book that I'm going to talk about is Letters to a Young Poet, and the poet in discussion is Rainer Maria Rilke. He was an internationally famous poet, and to give a brief introduction about him, he was an Austrian-German poet born in the year 1875. He wrote several collections of poetry, one novel, and he is known for his contribution in German literature. He wrote in German as well as in French, and he wrote numerous letters to different people from across the world, and many of his letters have been compiled into books. And this book, Letters to a Young Poet, is one such compilation of his letters which he wrote to a student called Mr. Capus. So Mr. Capus was a student in an Austrian military academy, which was also previously attended by the poet. And initially, Mr. Capus decided to contact Rilke, asking him for advice about his own poems. And Rilke went to advise him about the nature of poetry, creativity, how one should approach art and poetry, and about life in general. He does not merely give instructions on how one should be a good poet and all that, but he talks about things like art and poetry from a much broader perspective. He really goes into the depth of these things of art and poetry. For example, he says that one should go into oneself and really ask the reason why they are writing. Or he talks about avoiding general themes and instead writing about everything that our everyday life offers us. And I want to quote his exact lines from the book. So he says that, so rescue yourself from these general themes and write about what your everyday life offers you. Describe your sorrows and desires, the thoughts that pass through your mind, and your belief in some kind of beauty. Describe all these with heartfelt, silent, humble sincerity, and when you express yourself, use the things around you. If your everyday life seems poor, don't blame it, blame yourself. Admit to yourself that you are not enough of a poet to call forth its riches, because for the Creator there is not poverty and no poor, indifferent place. It is very difficult to sum up Rilke's words into one or two sentences, because the gravity associated with every word and sentence of his is beyond explanation. The way he writes, his prose, his use of words, the way he talks about everything, not just about creativity, but about life as a whole, it needs to be felt and experienced, not just read. Besides creativity and art, the topics that he talks about are relationships, love, solitude, etc. He talks a lot about solitude. He talks about the world which we carry inside of ourselves. And the word solitude does sometimes have a negative connotation. It is referred to as being lonely or not wanting to be with people, but in Rilke's words, this word solitude has such a significant and in-depth meaning. It is essential for anyone and everyone, irrespective of the kind of person we are. We need to embrace solitude and not disregard it, because it is the place in which we grow. It is also the place that helps us to reflect and work on ourselves and expand our wholeness, and then share that wholeness with other people. Contrary to the conventional meaning of solitude, it's not a tool of disengagement, it's actually a tool for engagement. It helps us to engage with people from the place of wholeness. It helps us to connect with people from our cores, and he explains this topic more elaborately and more beautifully in many of his letters, and in his own words, his explanation does justice to the meaning he wants to convey. This is a very short book. It has only 10 letters. And here I would like to share another quote from the book, a quote about what it means to be an artist. So it says, everything is gestation and then birthing, to let each impression and each embryo of a feeling come to completion, entirely in itself, in the dark, in the unsayable, the unconscious, beyond the reach of one's own understanding, and with deep humility and patience to wait for the hour when a new clarity is born. This alone is what it means to live as an artist, in understanding as in creating. I love Rilke's honesty in the letters. He writes from a place of authenticity. He does not just write to give a formal reply to a letter sent to him. Technically, Mr. Kapus is a stranger to him. I mean, they have never met in person and they do not have a direct connection. But the letters feel so intimate. It feels like Rilke has known him forever, like a very old friend. From what I have heard, Rilke was always like that in his letters. He used to write these deeply personal and intimate letters to people. And during the correspondence between Mr. Kapus and Rilke is actually traveling through Europe, and he still takes out time to pen these beautiful letters. I mean, not just any letter or a reply to a letter, but this deep poetic reflections about life and other significant topics. It is a heart-to-heart conversation through the letters. The best thing about this book is everything. Rilke's wisdom is so vast, and he even articulates it well through his words. It is a very soul-stirring book, and I don't think there is a proper way to describe something as deep and reflective as Rilke's words. I am at a loss for words to describe Rilke's words, because they're more than just words, they're beyond words. They're life itself, and everything that's within life and beyond life, and everything that cannot be perceived by mere thoughts or our eyes alone. It requires an immeasurable amount of insight to be able to perceive the world the way Rilke does. And I'm glad that I got a sneak peek into his world through his writing. I would love to recommend this book to everyone, but I think this book will appeal to people who likes traditional poetry or highly philosophical and abstract themes or spiritual themes about life, art, and nature. This isn't a very simple book. It has complex themes and explanations. If you are someone who likes those kind of things, you might like this book. It is a very valuable book. And here I would like to add a very important fact. So Rilke's works have been translated by numerous translators. For example, this one that I'm holding now is translated by Charlie Loth. But I do not think this is the best translation. I downloaded another translation of this book on my Kindle, which is by Harter Norton, and I thought that was a really good translation. From my side, I would definitely recommend the translation of Harter Norton for this book. Another very important thing I want to say here is that I want to thank Emma from our BookTube channel, Emmy, from whom I actually heard about Rilke and his works. She is a huge fan of Rilke, and she talks about him constantly in many of her videos. And she also has a video dedicated specially to Rilke on how one should read his works. So if you are interested to know more about this wonderful poet, then head over to her channel and check out her videos, especially the videos she had made on Rilke. I'll even link it in my description. And also just check out her channel in general if you haven't already. She makes amazing videos, very great content, and she is a really sweet person. So I want to conclude this video with a quote from the book. So here it is. "You are so young, so much before all beginning, and I would like to beg you, dear sir, as well as I can, to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and to try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday, in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer." With this, I am winding up my video. Hope you liked my video, and thank you for watching my video till the end.